welcome to a new episode of the Woodlands Fibre Studio Knitting Podcast. My name is Jule and I'm the dyer and maker behind Woodlands Fibre Studio, which is a small creative space located here in northern Germany where I play with natural dyes and natural yarns. Hello and welcome, and if you're a returning viewer, welcome back. I'm so happy to have you here for this new video where I'm going to show you a new yarn that we're having as a little preview video. Spring is definitely here, and well, we had a couple of really beautiful days recently, but as it usually is, whenever I sit down to record another video, the weather turns really gloomy. I think it's kind of a curse, I don't know, but I hope it's going to be okay. I hope you're going to see everything that I'm having to show you today, and that you'll enjoy me watching me rambling about some woolly goodness and something new that I've been working on behind the scenes. So how this is going to work, for those of you who are new here, I like to record videos about my yarns and tell a little bit of the backstory and also show everything in natural lighting and movement, because I have a feeling that this is what shows the properties of a yarn and the color the most accurate. And while screens can always vary and, you know, manipulate the outcome of how a color might look, I feel like recording in natural light is as best as I can do to properly show how it looks in real life. By the way, we are having spring holidays here in Hamburg where I am located and a lot of parents with kids live in the area where I have my studio, and so just in case you're wondering if there's, you know, kids screaming outside, I record next to the largest window that we have here, and therefore it might sometimes be a little bit noisy. I never know how much it comes off on camera and how much the camera actually picks up, and I try to also do a little bit of editing in the post-production to reduce any kind of, you know, noise, but I'm never sure. And I kind of take it as, you know, a lively soundscape, if you will. But yeah, just so you know. And yeah, how this is going to work, I'll first tell you a little bit about this new yarn that we've created recently, and then I'm going to show you a couple of swatches and some samples that me and my mum knit together to showcase this yarn. And in the end, I'm gonna tell you a little bit, about suitable patterns and just guide you through how to potentially get this yarn if you are interested in it. But yeah, first of all, let me start out with telling you a little bit of its backstory. So when I create a new yarn, there are several different ways on how a project gets started. And sometimes it's a vision that I have in my head where I'm like, I would love to create this and this, and I would love, you know, sometimes a concept for a yarn is very clear in my head, and then I can't stop until I've kind of realized it and, have brought it to life. But sometimes it also is the other way around. Sometimes it works this way that I get approached by someone, my mills, or, you know, a potential a shepherd or a shepherdess or someone who might want to work with me and propose me with a certain fiber or a certain opportunity that I'm getting. And it depends on, I cannot take all kinds of offers when it comes to yarns, but sometimes this really sparks inspiration in me, and then I start thinking about if I could make this into a concept that I would personally enjoy knitting with. And if I can, then I try to, you know, envision how this yarn could come to life and what it could be used for. And this was the case for this new yarn. I had the opportunity of using a pretty rare fiber that I did not even know that it existed. So I was really excited when I heard about it. And yeah, when I first had just a pull of the raw fiber not being spun into yarn in my hands, I was so drawn to its natural color that I was thinking of how I could, you know, envision this in a yarn. And the end result I'm super happy with, but yeah, it always is a bit of a ride. I always think back and forth what yarn weight might be suitable, what type of spinning would be suitable for this kind of fiber, and what are we going for. And yeah, it always is a bit of a back and forth. And yeah, I had a moment with this where I even thought about ditching it, ditching the whole idea and not doing it, because the fiber had a very dark natural tone that I would not be able to dye over. And it was a very expensive fiber as well. And at the same time, I had a certain minimum requirement amount that I had to meet at my mill, because we wanted to make use of the whole batch of the fiber. And also they have minimums depending on their machinery, on how much they can get through. And usually depending on the mill and their machinery, there are minimums that you have to meet in order for the yarn to be spun. And with all this coming together, I was like, okay, I cannot dye this. I could only sell it in its natural state, and I do not want to waste any of this precious fiber, and therefore didn't want to, you know, just take a bit of it or anything. And so we spoke to the mill, and they made it possible for us. And in the end, I took the leap and split the fiber into 2 batches where I could make 2 different weights from it, which then I thought might work really well with this concept, and would be easier to have than just one weight, because it's more versatile this way. Yeah, but I guess without further ado, let me show it to you. This is the yarn that I'm talking about, and this is, I decided to call it Woodlands because its natural brown tone kind of reminds me of the calm feeling I get whenever I'm taking a walk in the woods, and which I try to do, and I don't do enough, but I try to do it more often, especially in the main, you know, knitting season where I'm really busy. I like to go, you know, leave the busy, noisy city for a little bit and go like mushroom hunting and, you know, just soak up the energy in the woods. And I thoroughly enjoy it. And whenever I saw the yarn in its finished state, I was so reminded of the different shades of brown that you see in the trees in the woods. And it appears a bit more coolish in undertone on camera, I would say. It's a bit more warm in real life, but it's a neutral brown. And the fiber in this is actually 100% bluefaced Leicester, but in a natural brown, which I didn't even know existed. I thought for some reason that bluefaced Leicester sheep would only exist in a white ecru kind of shade. But that's not the case. And I found out about this actually last year when we were producing our summer blend linen, which consists of some flax fiber and a naturally like beigey oatmeal color of a bluefaced Leicester. And when I found out about this opportunity that there are colored bluefaced Leicester fleeces, I was really excited to then be approached by the fact that there is even a dark brown. And this is actually the same fiber that is in our BFL Romney. And there we have just 25% of the dark brown bluefaced Leicester and just the white ecru Romney as a blend. So it's a lot lighter in color. But what's really cool, I think, is just that, you know, having 100% BFL that is not white, I found this concept so interesting, and just leaving it in its natural state and, you know, making something from it was just so right up my alley, and it met my aesthetic so much that I was just in love, especially because I'm experimenting with different yarn blends a lot recently, and I'm creating a lot of new yarns. I was so interested in trying something that would be 100% bluefaced Leicester, which is a well-known British breed for its softness and its luster and its shine. And I was really excited to, you know, try it. And hello, could you focus? And yeah, make this very unique and limited yarn from it. So yeah, so this one is Woodlands, and it's 100% bluefaced leicester in this natural brown state of fiber, no, this natural brown color. And it's incredibly soft in my eyes. I sound like a broken record, but this is super individual, and I think I say this in every podcast episode, that it's so individual, but for me, this is incredibly soft, and some might still find this rustic, like people who might be used to just, you know, super fine merino or whatever. It might still have a rustic touch to it, and it's not like sleek in a way that some, you know, merinos would be. And of course, it's non-superwash, so just pure wool. So the scales of the wool have not been coated or anything like it is in a superwash treatment, and so it will still have a woolly feel, but I love how soft it is, and it's just beautiful. And yeah, but with colored blends, what comes with this is that they are, you know, they vary from shearing to shearing. And that is also why this yarn is a limited edition, because I will not be able, even if I'm getting more bluefaced leicester sheep fleeces in a natural color, I might not be able to get the exact same shade. And I also don't think I will, you know, my job is still to dye yarn, so I cannot really see myself having a lot of shades that I cannot dye, because that's my passion and job. So yeah, this is a limited edition yarn, and we will only have this as long as stock lasts. But as said, we will have it in 2 weights, which I'm pretty excited about. So we are going to have a 4-ply fingering weight version with 400 meters per 100 grams, which is this one. I love that it even looks heathered. Ah, just beautiful. And then we have a DK weight version, which is a 240 meters per 100 grams. And the good thing about this is that we designed this to be matching with our BFL Romney base, meterage wise, so you can actually combine the two. And I have a couple of samples and swatches where I show you how it might look. But before I do, I'll try to kind of lighten the situation here a little bit, because yeah, it's really gloomy out, so we might have to adjust the lighting every now and then. But yeah, so far about Woodlands, we have the 4-ply and the DK weight version to have more versatility, and I will next show you a couple of swatches so you can get a better idea of how it knits up. But what I really have to mention first is that I was extremely what was extremely interesting for me was that how little memory it has. Like, it's very drapey, and not in a way that an alpaca would be drapey, but I was really surprised. Usually whenever I had a skein of yarn twisted up already and I untwisted it again, I would not be able to retwist it without it looking funky or anything, because the yarn has memory, and, you know, coming from a certain twist before and then being twisted again, sometimes it just looks wonky. And if I had to untwist something and then twist it again, I always have to leave it hanging for at least a day or so the fibers relax and don't have the memory from the twisting before. But this, it seems to have very little memory, and it has a beautiful, you know, sleek kind of fabric that it creates. It might not have the most stitch definition for like cables or so, due to the fact that it doesn't have a lot of memory. With that being said, it's also no big deal to not have the most crisp cables. For me, I actually enjoy a slightly muted cable, if that makes sense, or muted texture, because yeah, I just enjoy that personally. And I'm actually planning a sample knit with some cables and with a silk mohair in it to blur the cables even more. So I'm personally into that. But it was something that I really, that stood out to me because it was something that I had never experienced in that way. But without further ado, I shouldn't ramble too much and rather show you some swatches. So first we were going to start with a teeny tiny swatch. I don't really know why it turned out so small, but I think it might be, my mom and I do knit these swatches back to back, and we usually try to settle for one amount of stitches so we can measure and, you know, just see how it differs between the needle sizes. And it might be that we accidentally also knit the same amount for the DK weight swatch for the 4-ply, so that's why it's so tiny. But this is how it looks knitted up. It's a beautiful, soft, and really drapey fabric, but it also evens out quite a lot after knitting. And it also has a bit of bounce. I would say it's a tiny bit less than our BFL Romney, but it has a bit of a bounce still. And this one is knit on 3mm needles. So just to give you an idea of the fabric that it creates. Next up, we also have a swatch of the DK weight version. And this one was worked on 4mm needles. So a little bit looser, but you can see the bounce still. So this is the 4mm, and then we also have one on 375. I never know, or I never remember the US sizing, so excuse me, I'm just gonna say the millimeter ones, and then you might be able to find a source online that shows what it is in US, but this is 375. And yes, this is how it knits up on its own. And then I also mentioned that it might work with other yarns that we have in stock, because that was also kind of how I envisioned this yarn to be, is that it could be combined with other colors in color work, for example, and therefore it should work with our other bases. And to give you a better idea, we also have a swatch in a color work, and this is actually the Woodlands 4-ply together with our Shetland Romney 4-ply, which is something we will be restocking in the next collection. But yeah, here you can see that it also works, even though the Shetland Romney 4-ply is a 350 meters per 100 grams, so slightly heavier than the Woodlands 4-ply. But this is how it would look in the color work. And I think it would have a pretty similar effect if you would put BFL Romney 4-ply in the undyed shade as well. So in case you are into this tiny little cute gingham swatch, you can achieve a similar effect if you use Woodlands 4-ply together with BFL Romney 4-ply. I love this one. I don't know, it's just so cute. This is, by the way, this is the gingham pouch pattern by Wei Chin of the Petite Knitter. We just wanted to see how it might look with our natural colors on other bases, so that's why we decided to knit this swatch. But that's not all. We made a lot of swatches for this base, just because I felt there are so many options for this yarn, and it would be easy to, you know, envision. For me, it's easy to envision when I have the yarn in front of me and I can feel it and I can imagine it, but I kind of wanted to take you along and give you a couple of inspirational ideas what you can do with it. So, and another thing we did was making swatches of woodlands held with different shades of silk mohair. And this is actually not our own cloud silk mohair, because that yarn, we're having a little bit of a supply issue, so we still have quite some in our storage room, but to be transparent, we don't know if we can get it spun again, because there is a problem with the supply of cruelty-free silk, which is what we used in this base. And yeah, until we find an alternative, I'm not gonna go to like use commercial silk because it's just not meeting my my values. Until then, I'll try to kind of hold on to cloud a little bit more and not, you know, it didn't really make sense to dye a shade that would match this because we have a couple of hundred skeins of this, and dyeing a couple of hundred skeins of just a brown where I could express myself in so many other colors as well on the cloud silk mohair base, I kind of thought it's a bit of a sad thing to do. And therefore I looked for alternatives on what you could knit with the woodlands colorway, and I found a couple of matches in the shade range of Knitting for Olive. They do have a beautiful silk mohair yarn with cruelty-free silk and certified mohair fibers as well, and therefore they meet my ethical standards as well. And I thought it's a good way to also show you the options and also show you how the color behaves when worked with a different hue kind of that the silk mohair can give. And therefore I will show you the swatches that we made. Let me start out, let me see which one to start out with. Maybe this one. Yeah, so this one I've knitted the Woodlands DK together on a 4.5mm needle, together with the Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair in the colorway Hazel, which is pretty much an exact shade match with Woodlands. Let me show you. So this is very, very close, I would say. More of a neutral grayish undertoned brown. And so if you're looking for a shade that's pretty much exactly an exact match, let me put it back here maybe. The Hazel, or I think it's Hazel in English and it's hazelnut in Danish, so it's hazelnut in Danish, I don't know. But this is a pretty exact shade match. Let me hold the swatch as well. And it results in, you can knit it on, I knitted it on slightly larger needles, so 4.5mm, but you could even go down to 4mm and it would still work. So it would also, you know, increase the range of needle sizes you can work this with. So this would be the Hazel. Then we also tried to create a version where it's a slightly lighter, also neutral brown. And this one is a swatch of Woodlands Fourply together with Knitting for Olive's, what was it called? Nut Brown, I think? Yeah. Nut Brown is the colorway name. And this one is slightly lighter, but also very neutral in undertone, resulting in a slightly lighter, but still neutral swatch. And let me compare, oh, too many swatches. Let me compare the two. There you can see that the one with nut brown is quite a bit lighter. And then we also experimented with a slightly more reddish undertoned silk mohair. This is the shade Dark Cognac. And knitted with Woodlands DK, it looks like this. And I think this is really pretty too. It gives a slightly rusty, warmer undertone, less neutral than the original swatch or the swatch with Hazel. Here you can see. And then we thought of making even a little bit more of a experimental choice because I felt in some lights the brown in Woodlands looks a little bit like a purple almost, and so I thought to also swatch it with a slightly purpley undertoned mohair, and this is Plum Clay, and it looks like this with Woodlands, and I think in real life it looks even more purpley, and it's like, it looks like almost a taupe shade. It's really pretty. Let me try to hold it next to the others. It's more grayish purple in undertone than the other ones. So that was actually kind of cool, I feel. It's like a whole different concept that way. And so, yeah, there is quite a selection of mohair shades that you can use with this color. And I think all of them create a really beautiful hue that, depending on your personal color choice, really opens up a lot of possibilities. And it also shows that sometimes you feel like a color of a yarn and a mohair wouldn't necessarily match if you hold them next to each other, but since the thread of the mohair is so thin, it usually just blends in really beautifully and creates more of like a hue than just necessarily a match, if that makes sense. I don't know. But yeah, I hope this is helpful, and that you can kind of imagine what color scheme would be your favorite. I'll also try to insert a picture where I show all of the swatches next to each other, because it's a bit hard. I mean, you can tell that we're having a bit of a struggle with the light. So it's a bit hard to, you know, show them all at the same time, but I'll make sure to also insert a little picture and where you can maybe see it a little bit better. But yeah, I hope this was helpful. Wow, now the light is going really crazy. I hope this was helpful and that it gave you an idea of how it works with a silk mohair. I personally really love how it turns out. I love the fabric. It's very classy, and I think it would be perfect for like a minimalist kind of wardrobe staple sweater that I think would go with so many things. And this is actually also how I envisioned this yarn whenever I knit the first swatch. Was like, this color is so nice and neutral that it really gives the opportunity to, you know, work with so many shades and so many other colors, and could be such a good wardrobe staple, you know, because I am a lover of neutral things, and I love to, you know, subtly add a couple of colorful items to my wardrobe, but then have a few things that I can just chuck on and, you know that they will suit pretty much everything else I might wear with this. And this is definitely a shade that supports that concept, I feel. Now I've rambled a lot already. I feel like this video is going to be longer than I anticipated. But next up, I want to show you a couple of samples that we knit in order to show you how the yarn behaves. And what I also thought of the color first was that it's a really unisex kind of color, and it would also work really great with for men's garments. And so I decided to knit a unisex sample that I can then pass on to my partner Christoph, who luckily shares kind of a size with me because we have the same chest circumference. And by just lengthening it, and, you know, I didn't really make a lot of modifications. I just paid attention that I chose a size that would, you know, be a bit too big for me, but would fit him and would be oversized on me, so that's fine. So we could technically share this sweater, but I'm going to probably pass it on to him after I've shown it as a sample, because now it's too long for me anyways. So this is the Stick Season sweater. And it's a pattern by Rebecca Clow or the Creator Bayer on YouTube and Ravelry and Instagram. And this is a beautiful minimalistic kind of sweater with a little bit of texture in the yoke and then a stockinette body. Let me see if I can hold it up like this. It is really minimalistic, but it has some super clever details. As you can see here on the sleeve, there's this pretty line running, and it's actually running even more beautiful in the back because it's, you know, it runs down here on the shoulder line and then down the sleeves. And then I don't even know how to show this. but it also runs down the sides. This is really hard. I'm sorry, I'm struggling so much. But it also runs down the sides of the sweater and then blends beautifully into the hem ribbing. I think it's just so pretty. And I love these kind of details where it's like the whole sweater technically is pretty minimalistic, but it has these, you know, tiny details where you're like, this is just so pretty. I love it, especially how it runs down and then meets below the armhole. It's just awesome. And it actually is knitted in pieces first. So you start with the the back panel, then you knit the shoulders and the front panel, and then you join in the round and continue knitting in the round before then picking up stitches for the sleeves and knitting them in the round. So it was a super easy peasy, really mindless knitting project. I totally enjoyed this thoroughly. And as long as you're, you know, kind of familiar with how to consistently pick up stitches, even the details were super easy because you knit the little detail already while you did the panels, the yoke panels, and then you just pick up. You just have to pay attention that you pick up properly in order for it to, you know, shine. But it's super easy. I found it super easy to do, and it was really mindless, and it was the perfect project for me these past couple of weeks where I was working on so many projects at the same time, and I was like, oh, I kind of need something that would not clutter my mind with even more to-dos. So this was perfect for that. And here you can also see how drapey it is. Like the fabric is not stiff at all. It's really drapey. And I think I could have even gone down a needle size fabric wise. Like it's not that I don't like it as it is. I love it as it is, but it could have worked even on smaller needles and would not have been too stiff or tight. But I worked a size 5 in order for it to fit my partner as well. Christoph luckily is not very tall and he's kind of slim. He's very into like marathon running and like bike riding, like proper sporty bike riding. So he's more of a pretty lean person. And when we checked with his measurements, I figured that the size 5 should be perfect for him, and I could even wear it like as an oversized one this way. So this is a size 5, and I lengthened the body by, let's say, I think it was 5 to 6 centimeters or so. I did add a little bit of length and a little bit of length to the sleeves as well, but that was only like 3 centimeters or so. And actually, Rebecca also includes a little how to work it for men's sizes. She doesn't include proper like measured men's sizes in the pattern, but it's super easy to modify, I believe. And at least if you're kind of familiar with how to modify and what modifications are needed, it's super easy, and Rebecca guides you. In my eyes, she guides you pretty well. And yeah, I can really recommend making this. I'm even contemplating knitting a second version for myself in the same size, so a little oversized for me, but with a cropped version, because I can really imagine this one over like linen skirts. Because, it's just it's so classy, and while it has the little details in the yoke portion, I still feel it's extremely, minimalist and very versatile. It would work with a lot of things in my wardrobe. Amount-wise, I used about 5 skeins, so 485 grams or so. So you could probably need even less if you wouldn't lengthen it and just knit it to the pattern. But I think For a size 4 to 5, I would always go for like 500 grams, especially because this yarn is limited and I won't be able to bring it back. So if you run out of yarn, this would be a little bit of a problem. As always with my samples, I have added all info to my Ravelry page, and you can access it, like what needle size I use and all that. You can check everything on my Ravelry. I have added a link to the project, to the sample project below, so you can check it out and remind yourself of the facts without having to listen to me telling them to you again. But yeah, you can check it all out there. As with all of my samples, I try to get better at using Ravelry, and I have a lot of thoughts on this platform, if I'm honest. And I know it's still the place where you get, you can access a lot of info, and you can, keep track of your progress. And it's so nice to have access to all these patterns there as well. So it's, as a yarn person, I have to say there are things that drive you crazy sometimes. But yeah, I still try to, make the information as accessible as I can. And if you're not using Ravelry and you have a question about my samples and you don't use that platform, feel free to email me at hello@woollentwine.com. That's also linked down below, and I'm gladly going to help you with that. Now, I also have another sample to show to you. All the info will also be on my Ravelry page. But since I told you that the concept was to combine this one with BFL Romney as well, this one was knitted in Woodlands DK and BFL Romney DK, both in the undyed shades. And this one is the Mara sweater by my friend Anna Sjäsvad. She's a Swedish knitwear designer, and I absolutely love her designs. And I remember seeing the swatch for this one for the first time, and I was immediately in love. And this was just, this called to me so much. And there is another pattern by another designer out there that has, this kind of minimalist two-color, not very, just a geometrical kind of color work yoke out there. And that designer, unfortunately, is not size inclusive at all. I'm not gonna say who it is. Not putting shade on anyone or something, but it's just not something I would like to support. And so when I saw that that Anna was designing a monochrome color work yoke, I was like, yes! I have to knit this at some point. And so I was on the hunt for the perfect yarn for this. And yeah, when Woodlands landed on the studio doorstep, I knew this was the combo. And as said, worked with just the undyed shade of BFL Romney. It's a perfect match in my eyes. So it has these beautiful two-colored monochrome yoke with a couple of slip stitch details that I think are so interesting and really cool, and even add a little bit of texture to the yoke pattern. But yeah, this one we just knitted in my size, so it's a size 4, and also pretty cropped. The pattern calls for a cropped length, but you can easily lengthen it just by adding a couple of centimeters. But this was a size 4, knit on 4mm needles, I believe, and roughly 400 grams of yarn were used. So yeah, not a whole skein of the contrasting color, and around 3.5 or like 3 and a little bit of the Woodlands main color. But yeah, I absolutely love this pattern. I think I'm very picky with color work on myself, just because I'm so into seeing myself in very minimalistic kind of clothing. It's just something I'm always very picky with, and therefore when I saw this one, it was perfect because it just has this geometrical kind of yoke that I really, really like personally. And I think this could also be very nice in, you know, with the woodlands as the main color and then like a deep dark burgundy colorway or so. I think it works with a lot of shades for the contrasting color because it's it doesn't need to be super high contrast. It also works, like the effect, the geometrical effect of it all also works with less of a stark contrast in my eyes. But yeah, this is the Mara. It has a double folded neckband as well, which I really like, and it's actually quite an open neck, which is super nice, I feel, especially now that it's getting a little bit warmer. It's a bit more airy. But yes, this sample info for this one is also linked below and on my Ravelry, so you can reference it in case you're inspired and would like to knit something similar. Speaking of, no, it's really dark again. Speaking of pattern inspiration, I have curated a little pattern list that would work with woodlands. It is mostly the same as for our BFL Romney base, just because they have a very similar meterage, first of all, and also feel like they're both rather drapey and very versatile in their way of, you know, how they knit up. And I think they would work with a lot of different patterns, from accessories to garments alike. And so you will find the pattern suggestions for this down below. I also added the 2 patterns that we used for the samples. And yeah, there you can reference everything. It's a Ravelry bundle again, so if you don't use Ravelry, feel free to email me and I'll try to send you a little list. But there you can just, I thought it's, you know, it's a new thing that I'm doing for a couple of months now, and from the feedback I'm getting from you and from how I can how I can imagine it to choose a pattern for a yarn, I think it's very helpful to have the designer's pictures, you know, very quickly accessible, and just, you know, see them in one glance, and then you can be like, oh, this is my style, or I prefer this one. And it's a bit easier than just having the names and having to Google the designs. So I just decided to set up those bundles, and I hope they're helpful. But yeah, I guess that is it about this yarn. Have I forgotten anything? If I have, I'm going to edit it in later on. But yeah, please welcome Woodlands very warmly, our beautiful 100% single breed bluefaced Leicester yarn that I'm so happy about. And I should maybe mention in the end, admin wise, as mentioned, we have around a couple hundred skeins of this, and once they're gone. So we cannot reproduce this yarn. And so, because I remember last time I had a limited edition, there were a lot of questions, and also about the pricing and things. And while I try to, you know, give all info as well as I can in these videos, I also enjoy to share, you know, the joy of it all and not focus too much on the hard facts, but I want to make the hard facts really accessible as well. And therefore, even though this is a limited edition yarn, and I used to not add the limited editions to my yarn base page on my website, I now updated the website in a way that you can also see the limited editions on the base pages and reference the info there again, including pricing and everything. So I will link it all down below as well. You will find all info there as soon as I have uploaded everything, but that should be when this video is up, so should be fine. And yeah, there will also be the info on when this yarn is going to launch for the first time. So I can really recommend to check out my website as well, and what else we'll have available to go with this yarn. And if any additional questions come up regarding this yarn, I do mention this a couple of times, but it's always easier for me to moderate questions when they come in to my email inbox rather than YouTube comments or Instagram DMs. I try to stay on top of them, but sometimes it's just, you know, I'm just one person and I sometimes don't really manage. So email is always the safest way to reach me and to get an answer in time before an update goes live. So I just ask you to email me if there is something you're curious about. That's always the easiest way. But yeah, I guess that is it. I'm super happy with this yarn and I can't wait to see how you're going to receive it. And yeah, until then, I guess I'm gonna sign off now and see you in the next video. Happy knitting!